Welcome to episode 1 of the Watson Sound podcast. I'm your host, Alex Ward, music producer and owner of Watson Sound Music Production Studio in St. Louis, Missouri. In this podcast, I go in depth with artists from far and wide to learn about their stories. Today, I'm joined by Will Gerdell and Greg Primo. Will is the past lead singer of indie rock band Stealing Silver and current bassist for Bullseye Womprats, a St. Louis dance cover band. He is also an incredible music producer and audio engineer and the owner of Pelican Recordings Studio. Greg is a past member of Stealing Silver as well as lead guitarist. He is the current lead vocalist for indie rock band Eastview and current guitarist for Bullseye Womprats. I've known Will and Greg for several years now, and they are two of the most creative and hardworking guys I've met. We'll be talking about their backgrounds as musicians, including their successes and failures together in Stealing Silver and beyond, how they stay motivated to keep working, Eastview's new song Emergency, and the process and meaning behind it, and more. With no further delay, I hope you enjoy this episode with Will Gerdell and Greg Primo.
This is an emergency, a non-essential tragedy. A generation has lost its will to fight, searching for the remedy to reawaken humanity, lost in the fiction of our time. Alright.
All right, guys, well, welcome. Thanks for coming.
Yeah, thanks for having us, man.
Yeah.
So first off, can you tell us just a little bit about your background, both of you?
Ooh, Greg's got a better story than I do, that's for sure.
I do?
Yeah. Well, I'll tell mine first because yours is better. So, pretty much both my parents were musicians. So, my dad is a professional trumpet player of, 40 some odd years, and my mom was an elementary school music teacher. So, it was kind of inevitable that both my sister and I would end up being in music in some capacity. I actually didn't even want to, my first experience with music was fifth grade band playing saxophone, and I didn't even want to, but my dad made me, and he was like, Will, you're going to do at least 1 year of band, and if you hate it, you can drop out, and of course I fell in love with it, so it just kind of snowballed from there and picked up different instruments as I had them and started writing music and playing in bands, and yeah.
Nice.
Greg's story is way better, though.
I feel like mine's longer, but I can shorten it.
Yeah,
So,
it involves action.
it does involve action, auction as well. I've been in love with music since I was a really, really little kid. I got really into the idea of guitar when I was really little. I used to watch Back to the Future all the time.
Great movie.
And there's that scene of Marty McFly just shredding, and I thought that was so cool. So that was kind of my first intro to hey, you could do this, even though I was 5.
Right.
But I really started playing guitar around 9, and
Something like that.
I wasn't taking it terribly seriously at the time, but my love kind of kept growing for it, and I kind of made a choice because I was also playing baseball. I was really, really into baseball for a while.
You're really good at baseball.
And thank you.
Yeah, dude.
So pretty much, I'm at this game, I throw a pitch, line drive, hits me in the head, and I go to the hospital. I was in a coma for 4 days, and it's this whole thing.
It's a whole thing.
It's a story and a half. But I kind of, at that point, was like, well, do you want to keep playing baseball, or do you want to pursue music?
How old were you then?
16. I just turned 16. This was 9 days after I turned 16 and it happened. And I hadn't met Will yet. But so I started my own cover band, and I actually met Will in that cover band. The cover band was called City Lights, and we needed a bass player real bad, and we put an ad out on Craigslist, and your dad answered that.
Right.
Because I think you were 14.
Yeah. Yeah. It was a long time ago, man.
Yeah, it's a long story, but that's kind of how I started playing music.
So what was your first gig like as City Lights?
Of my first gig with City Lights, it was good. I didn't even know any of you guys. I think we'd had...
What show was that? Where were we?
That was, I was out on the patio of that sandwich place. Pretty sure that was the night I met you
Maclindelli.
guys. Maclindelli, yep. I think I met you guys that night. We didn't even have a rehearsal before that, did we?
We didn't have a rehearsal, but I think you auditioned.
Did I?
And you didn't know half the music, but you played it right.
Oh, thanks, man.
I mean, you did. I was just like, so do you know all the songs? You're like, no, not really, but just play. And it was great.
Wow, there we go.
This is fine. We can do this.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. That was probably like my first professional gig outside of anything that like my dad helped me get, or just like sitting in with a band that my dad was running sound for. There's a group called The Rescue that my dad used to run sound for. That all of the like Judd Mailer, Travis Mailer, Matt Mailer, those guys were all brothers, and they put it together. And they had a couple other guys, Kevin Merciel and Sarah Talkchop and Brian Kazmarzik. Yeah, and those dudes, I just looked up to them a whole lot.
They were great.
They were really, really cool. I mean, they still are too. But they were awesome enough to let this 11-year-old saxophonist sit in on a couple tunes with them in the middle of their gigs.
Wow.
And that was just a crap ton of fun. That was, yeah. It was very inspiring to kind of make me want to do it more often, because it was so much fun.
My first show, I think I was 13 or 14 years old, and my dad's secretary knows a bar owner, and she got me into this bar. It's out in Union, Missouri. It's called One More Corner Bar, spelled with a K.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just this little bar. Everyone is super nice. Because, I mean, I was 14. I was not good. I was not very good. But they were so nice, and it was so much fun, and that was my first show, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
That was fun, but it was really scary. That first show was scary.
They
It's
always
daunting.
are.
It's probably
I was
daunting.
by myself. It was just me and an acoustic.
Oh, for real?
Oh.
Yeah.
That's terrifying.
So
I mean, I'm scared to do
14.
that today, and I'm
Yeah,
23
around
now.
a bunch of drunk
Yeah.
people, so
Yeah,
it's kind of
it's scary.
terrifying. It was good, though.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of which, what struggles have you had along the way of becoming an artist? Where you are today?
I think what I've struggled with the most is finishing a project.
Yep.
It's really, really easy to start something, but actually staying focused and finishing it and actually deciding that something is done is really difficult. And in that process, failing to actually finish a project has taught me a lot about working with people in a group, though. So it stinks that I went through that, but I definitely learned a lot about working with other people and how to do that a little bit better, at least as best as I can.
What are some of the things you do for at least your own projects?
I have people like Will that just keep me on it. It's
Sure,
like, dude,
okay,
finish
yeah.
this. I've also just personally tried to make myself finish something. I mean, nothing's gonna get done if you don't do it. So you just I kind of do time frames too. If I spend so much time on something every day, rather than working myself to death on it and getting sick of it. Sometimes just doing it in pieces is better. Avoids frustration.
Yeah. Yeah, likewise. It's like you're talking about struggles as an artist, creating some sort of product or content that actually has value, and like following through with that. Because a lot of, like, you think of an independent artist today and they'll say, you know, maybe people don't see any value in art, or they don't want to pay for it, which might be partially true, but I think a lot of us are at fault for not actually creating something that has value, that people are
Worth
actually
paying for.
interested in paying
Oh,
for,
yeah.
that's worth paying for, you know? Like,
Oh, yeah.
you think of the whole starving artist deal, but I would, you know, maybe challenge a lot of artists today to suggest that maybe what you're doing just isn't actually valuable enough to the people that you're trying to give it to, or maybe you haven't followed through with it enough. And we definitely went through a whole lot of that. Just one, creating garbage, and then two, not finishing any of our creations to begin with. And, you know, the whole
Yeah.
time we're thinking like, oh, well, we're going to be rock stars with this stuff. It's like, oh, not really. Like, we need to be a lot better than we are at a lot of different things before that'll happen.
Well, I think too, through that process that we went through, that something that I think we all learned is it can be frustrating when you're making music and sometimes, like you said, sometimes it's garbage.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you think it's great, but everybody else thinks it's garbage
Yeah.
in the group. And it's something I think I learned is, rather than getting really upset about it, is that everybody just cares. Everybody just wants it to be good. And if you have people not saying anything anymore, they don't care anymore. So it's important, but it's also like there's a fine balance.
Yeah, and there's a whole idea of, you see it, the quotes online that are like, musicians face more rejection than most people do in like a whole year, and they do it in a week's time, kind of thing. Which is, I mean, when you're creating, that's inevitable. Like, you're gonna have people telling you all the time that what you're doing is just crap. But
And it can be tough though, because it's your heart on paper.
And it is. It's hard. And like I said, in any sort of genre of creating, it's just inevitable. But it's something that, like, it makes you stronger if you can get through it.
Yeah.
And once you actually start doing stuff that has some kind of reputation and quality to it, and that's when things really get good. But you don't get there without first having a bunch of people telling you that what you're doing is crap.
Sure. So would you say finding a healthy balance there is like, how much do you think you should listen to your fans?
Oh,
like,
you
should
have
you be
to.
making music for your fans or for yourself?
Both. In my opinion, a lot of people are going to have different thoughts on it. Like, the purpose of an artist, in my mind, is to add value to people's lives in some manner, whether that's getting them to see the world the way you think they ought to look at it, or just to write a feel-good summer tune that is going to make them smile all summer long, driving around with the windows down kind of thing, or to make them, have an existential crisis and, have a new worldview, whatever it is. Like, you have to write with them in mind. Of course, you have to come from a place of authenticity inside yourself. But if you don't write with some kind of purpose for an audience, then there's not any value in what you're doing. There's, why would anybody ever pay money for just to listen to you sit and whine about your life,
Yeah, I mean, we're not that interesting. So.
Right, absolutely not.
I mean, I could pretty much second everything that you just said.
Oh, thanks, man.
I mean, you can even see it in artists that we've grown up listening to and hearing them today. They sound very, very different. And maybe even what they're singing about is different because, they've grown as a person and they want to tell you something new, or the music maybe sounds poppy because pop music is really popular right now. You have to, if you want to stay relevant, you have to kind of play the game a little bit, but if it's not honest, it's not going to work with anybody.
Right.
What would you say is your greatest accomplishment?
Stealing Silver was a great time. Like that, like those days when we were actually living together and we had a studio in the basement, we'd come home from work and record when we weren't busy watching Harry Potter and eating St. Louis pizza and wings. That was pretty much every day. But it was just, it's not much of an accomplishment, but there's not exactly
it's just
sure
great
what I'm trying to
memory.
say.
It was such a good learning experience.
Yeah,
too.
there's times in your life that you look back and you're just like, that was a really good time of my life. Like, I don't necessarily want to go back to that time of my life, but I like watching who I was at the beginning of that point and who I became by the end of it. Like, if that's the only accomplishment that I got out of it, was my personal growth and like allowing myself to become the person that I am, even if it wasn't necessarily a musical accomplishment or something that excelled my career, just the personal growth that I can look at during some of those times that I actually really enjoyed. I guess that might be what I would call my greatest accomplishment, is just being a better person, kind of less of a jerk over the years and that kind
I
of
don't
thing.
think I can follow that answer. That was such a good answer,
Thanks,
man.
man.
I wouldn't be upset if we went back to that. That would be awesome. I think we should play music all the time together again.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
Really
we
good.
kind of do.
Now you have to do it because
Yeah.
everyone knows about it. You're gonna
Right.
look like a jerk if you don't.
Dang it. If you're talking specifically musical accomplishment, I think one of the coolest things that we did was we actually got to play at a festival called Life Fest up in Wisconsin.
Dude.
And so the band, we packed up into a few cars and we traveled, 10 hours up to...
It's 8 hours there and 8 hours back.
8 hours. 8 hours up to Oshkosh, Wisconsin, and we got to sleep in a tent for 3 days, and we didn't shower. And it felt like you were doing it, like the whole touring lifestyle.
It felt like touring.
I've got friends who are actually touring right now who are listening to this, and they're thinking, "Man, what a loser! He thinks that's touring."
We
Right.
ate too, so that's not fair.
We did. We actually ate. We ate
probably
food.
good.
Dude, that was so fun though, because we made friends with a number of bands that played the same stage as we did, and we had them all over that night, and we all just had dinner together.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean,
That was
we made
awesome.
Friends with people who were just there listening to us, and we just met so many really good people, and we got to our parents were very diligent in taking care of us during that period of time.
Sure.
in our
That was the
lives.
first time we really left home.
They sent us with way more food than we needed, and it allowed us to kind of be a blessing to everybody else who was there,
That's cool,
because
yeah.
there were bands who were legitimately touring,
And they were
playing at that
stuck.
festival.
That's right.
And they were stuck there. They didn't have food or
Oh.
gas money.
Yeah.
So we get there and we just have this abundance of resources that we don't need. So we're just giving stuff
All of a sudden,
out.
you're the popular band.
Right. We
That's
had bands like, hey, are you guys legitimately? They're on the camping grounds. There were bands that were walking around, and they were like, "Are you guys the guys who are feeding people?" And we were like, "Yes, that's
Yeah,
us. Come
yeah,
get
yeah.
food, man." That was literally a thing.
great.
Word was getting out that we had more food than we needed, and these touring bands are coming over we're hungry. We literally haven't eaten in a while, and we were like, "You freaking
Dude,
eat
we have
up,
a
guys!
bunch,
Go for it."
It's such a funny story too, because the stage that we played on, we got the spot through somebody else because they couldn't make it, and the stage was a metal band stage.
Yeah.
We don't. We're
No.
not even close to
Nope.
metal. Because Stealing Silver is more of a Southern California sound. Maybe not that specific. It's really hard to describe.
Yeah.
That's a
You could
tough
have just
one.
given Andrew double bass drums.
Right. Right.
I mean,
That would
because
work.
there's so many different influences in that
Right.
group. But it was so funny because they're all huge dudes, and they're they play loud and proud, and I was just like, oh my gosh, everyone's gonna hate us. And then we ended up hanging out with all of them and having dinner. And they were teddy bears.
and
they
they
were the
liked
nicest
us.
guys.
They actually really liked our genre. Those dudes that we played with they had to be some of the nicest dudes that we've ever
I learned
gotten
a
to
lot
share a
about
stage
metal
with.
dudes that day.
Yeah.
And how late was this into the Stealing Silver career?
We were together for a
Stealing
while.
Silver formed in 2010.
That's probably 3 years in or 4.
I think we quit in 2014. So we had about a 4-year run. I think that was about the third year. So,
Okay.
yeah,
Something like that.
something around
It was
there.
4 or 5 years altogether.
Somewhere in the middle of it.
Gotcha. What is your process of writing a song?
I actually haven't been writing nearly as much as I used to. Usually it comes from, for me, I'm inspired by some sort of confusion in my life, whether that be confusion about religion or about girls or something. It used to be about girls a lot more often.
Things we don't understand.
Right. Things we don't understand, yeah.
Politics.
Alyssa's definitely made me a lot less confused about girls, so that's a good thing.
So
Good.
But it just something that caused some kind of inner turmoil that I had to come to peace with, and oftentimes I would just sit down somewhere in school, in high school or college. Really, I'd be skipping a class and I'd just go hang out in a practice room or somewhere with a piano, and I would just sit down and start playing stuff, and just melodies and words would end up coming to my head, and kind of whatever granted the most peace about whatever that turmoil was, and however that fit the melody would just kind of come to fruition, and then we'd play it.
That was fun, though.
Yeah. I mean, not for me, usually. I was
Well,
really
I thought it was
sad.
great because you would just bring us these songs on acoustic, and we'd listen, and then we'd go downstairs and just play them.
Mm-hmm.
And it was so much fun.
Yeah, because Will, you were mostly the songwriter for Stealing Silver.
Yeah.
He was. He just was a songwriter. Yeah, my process is super different because
Yeah.
I'm not a lyricist at all. Will thinks I could be, but I don't know about
Oh,
that.
you totally could.
So it's kind of the same thing, though, that you said. That it's usually some kind of irritant, and I have trouble putting that into words, but I feel like I can turn my emotion into music a lot better than I can lyrics. So I usually end up writing a lot of the music first, which can be really frustrating because that's what you're stuck with. I mean, I think the melody and lyrics are the most important part of the song.
Yeah.
Everything else is just enhancing that. So it can be frustrating, but I'm trying to learn how to do it more along the lines of how Will does, where you got this melody and stuff, and then you slap some music on top of it.
Yeah. I've discovered that from since I've not been writing as much, it's literally just because I haven't been trying to write as much. Like, people say, oh, they write when the inspiration strikes, but you have to be, you kind of have to be in a place to let inspiration strike. Like, if you're not trying to hear it, it's not going to come.
Yeah, you kind of have to search for it.
That's why, like I said, I would just go sit down at the piano and just play for an hour, 2 hours, just straight. Nothing in particular. I would just play chords and mess around until something that I liked happened, and then it would kind of stick, because I don't really kind of dedicate that time to doing that anymore, to just sitting down and letting inspiration kind of flow. Then I'm not hearing melodies and lyrics as much. But I'm certain that if I kind of sectioned off that time and provided a sense of priority to it, that it would definitely happen again, just that same way.
I know there have been studies done. It's a little bit counterintuitive to set out schedule time for creativity.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
Most creative minds wouldn't really think about that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's actually been studies that have found that it's best to have a schedule when you're going to focus on something like that.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I've been kind of trying to get into more of a rigid schedule throughout my day-to-day, make more routines, and become a more efficient person. And I think once I kind of get that down, I'm going to do that. I'm going to schedule time specifically to be creative, because it's something that never leaves. If you're a creative person, that's kind of a need of yours. There's this sort of drive and necessity to create, and if you don't have it, if you don't allow yourself that, you kind of suffocate a little bit.
Yeah. And that's what I was kind of saying when I got here, is that I would love to have my own studio, but I'm in an apartment right now, so it's not realistic because it's too loud. Because I was saying, I locked myself in a room for 3 hours today, and
you just got to give your neighbors peace
I wrote
offerings.
guitars, bass, drum. I pretty much got an entire concept for a song down in a few hours because I allotted myself that time to do it.
Yeah, of course.
Yep.
Who is your biggest influence?
Will.
I'm your biggest influence, or you told me to answer the question?
A little bit of both.
Thanks.
Little
man.
column A, little column B.
Yeah, I guess if you're asking just one specific influence that has had the most impact, and I'm sure Greg will say the same thing, it's definitely been Switchfoot.
Yeah.
Yeah. As a group I fell in love with early on. I think my sister actually kind of introduced me to him. She was listening to him before I was, and I stole her Dare You to Move album.
Nice.
Not Dare You to Move, Beautiful Letdown album, which has Dare You to Move on it. And started listening to that, and
Beautiful Letdown or Learn to Breathe?
both.
Both?
Yeah, which isn't my time.
Yeah, Switchfoot.
Yeah.
For sure. Now, Will, I knew of Switchfoot because I had heard Dare You to Move and Meant to Live. But Will...
The songs on Spider-Man.
You used to, you used to come over, though, and after rehearsal, you'd pull up, stars or something like that. And I was like, what is this? This is pretty cool. And Will would always say, Greg, you need to listen to more Switchfoot.
That was the phrase. Yep. He probably heard that 2 or 3 times a day.
And it got to a point where that's all I was listening to. That's aside from the Beatles, that's my favorite group.
It actually, I think we ended up telling you to listen to less Switchfoot at one point.
Yeah. I mean, it was... It
got an intervention.
It got bad, man. Yeah, I needed some detox from that. The Beatles, I grew up listening to... I listened to a lot of classic rock growing up, and the Beatles are a huge influence on me. Will is definitely a big influence on me.
Thanks, man.
Because some of my first experiences in writing music was with Will, for sure. I mean, you've done all kinds of things for me, the day he called me for Stealing Silver, he said, hey, would you want to play in my group? And I was like, yeah, sure. He goes, all right, because we need a lead guitarist. I didn't play lead guitar. I had zero experience playing lead guitar because it wasn't like classic rock where you just solo on everything. You had to actually come up with parts, and Will kind of threw me into that and showed me the ropes a little bit, and so I learned how to play proper lead guitar which is cool. I mean, I learned so many things about music from Will. I'm not as good as he is at it.
I'm blushing. They can't see it, but I'm blushing.
I'm not as good as he is at it. I wish that's my goal, is to just be as good as Will.
You need to set your sights higher, man.
Oh, man. I'll be as good as Switchfoot.
There you go.
Unlikely, but I'll try. Yeah, that and, I mean, a lot of different influences, really. I have a bunch of different stuff. Like, recently I downloaded on my phone Roll to Me by Del Amitri, I think is how you say his name.
Yeah.
You know the song?
Yeah.
There's Blink-182 on here. There's Bruno Mars. Hot Shell Ray, there's a throwback.
Yeah.
Guster, Gin Blossoms, Switchfoot, The Beatles.
We're both
all
big
kinds
fans of
people.
Green Day.
Dude, yeah.
Green Day's great.
Green Day.
They're so good. But yeah, all kinds of stuff. I have lots of influences.
Yeah.
So you, as Eastview, have a new song out called Emergency.
Yeah.
What was the process of writing it, and what is its meaning?
So it actually started, what did we say, 3 years ago?
Probably
or so?
something like that. Yeah.
Something like that. We were recording, it was a Stealing Silver song called Maybe This Is It, which is
Yeah,
one of
we
my
were
very
recording that.
favorites.
Thanks, man.
And in between takes, Will got really carried away because I think you were tuned down, I think, on a low string for that song.
Yep.
And I think you were drop D, but you had it capoed to be in B
Right.
flat.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he played this lick that was just fantastic. But we never really did anything with it.
Mm-hmm.
And 3 years later, I was like, Will, are you going to do anything with that lick? Because I would love to, because it's freaking great. And he was like, man, if you want to use it, go for it. Just at least give me some cred. And I was like, hey, dude, I'll give you... I mean, I didn't write that. I'm not good enough to write that. So there's this cool, reoccurring lick in the song. That it's kind of almost like the intro. And, well, it's in between sections, too. It's in there a lot, but it's great. So the year that I wrote that, I think that was last year that I wrote it.
That wasn't too long ago.
My friend Jake and I, who was actually a former bassist for our friend, I should say.
Yeah. I like him too.
For Stealing Silver. We would just go out on walks and talk about, we talked about those irritants and things like that. And we were kind of getting frustrated with ourselves and the world around us, and that I feel like we care about a lot of the wrong things. And I think as a human race, myself included, we're not very good at loving each other, and we just need to keep working on that. But we need to wake up and realize, hey, could I be treating my best friend better? Could I be a better brother to my brother or sister, kind of things like that. And so that's where the term, to us, it was really important. So that's where, the line is, this is an emergency. It's a non-essential tragedy. That's where that kind of comes from.
I see, sure.
And that it's urgent. I mean, we got to wake up and do something about it, So we talked about that a lot, and we wrote lyrics together. Jake wrote a lot of the lyrics for that. I did a lot of the music. So kind of back to what I was saying before about writing music, but it came together slowly, and then Will came over, and we were ready to record, and Will was like, well, I would love to engineer the project and produce it a little too. I mean, you helped us with a number of things, and so Will kind of helped us pull it all together. And
Cool.
That was kind of the process of that.
What was the best performance you've had?
I don't know, man. I've had a lot of really bad performances.
I was just thinking for myself. Oh my God. Good performances.
Isn't it such a shame, too? Because the good ones don't stick with you the way the bad ones do,
Yeah,
That's
that's super true.
Naturally, you see the worst.
Yeah, yeah.
Remember the worst.
Yep, absolutely. I don't know, though, the best.
I can think of 3 really good ones for you, at
For me,
least.
personally?
I don't know how well I played. But good performances, I'd say 1, Life Fest up in Wisconsin. It was really good. There was a magic, in my opinion, that happened that night between all 5 of us and even the crowd. Because that was one of the first times after our show people wanted to talk to us after we played.
Yeah.
And we were like, wow, that's pretty cool. I mean, we must have done something right. That was really good. There was a specific... we played at the Merge a couple times. I don't even know if that exists anymore out in St. Peter's, the Merge.
I'm not sure. I don't know.
We played it probably like 3 times out there, but there was one specific night I remember being great. It was the night that we played 2 shows that day. One of them was outside, and there were motorcycles going in front of us.
I remember that day. Yeah.
Excuse me. It was at a festival, and right before that show, we got poured on. Like we played that show, and then we loaded our stuff up, and before we could get, I think, to our cars or something, we got drenched, and then we went and played this. Like we headed straight from there to another show, and played that one. And that show at the Merge was really good. I can't say why, but it was just really, really good.
I don't know. I imagine it might have been some, kind of thing with being exhausted from being out in the heat all day earlier and getting rained on. Like when you're that tired and you still have work to do, you kind of lose some of your inhibitions and you just have fun.
Yeah.
And that might have been kind of what it was, because it was a really cool show. I remember that one. And there's just something magical about kind of, not caring how the rest of the day goes because you've already sweat and been rained on and you're covered in mud, because it was like a dirt bike rally kind of thing, and so it started pouring and we're just
it was almost like
pulling our shoes up out of the mud, that kind of thing. So it's like we just got beat up all day.
It's almost like rewarding. Almost, it felt like you put in hard work and you did well.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, and then the other one it was that place behind Best Buy in SoCo. There's a church behind it, I think, and we played in their like youth room or something like that. I just found videos of that
Did you?
Someone took. I think it might have been your mom, and I mean the quality's awful because we were loud.
And it's a cell phone,
but like I could tell that we were having a lot of fun.
Those shows were always fun. It always seemed like the louder that we were inside, the more fun that we had.
And some were terrible though.
Right. But there's a certain kind of electricity. Like we came to really enjoy the shows that were in smaller venues that had, a small venue that could hold 20 people that actually had 20 people there, compared to a big venue that had 20 people there. Like
Sure.
It feels like 100 people.
A different sort of energy. It's we came to like those shows a lot more.
It's awesome.
What was the most disappointing performance you've had?
I know this one.
Go for it, man.
In my opinion, I'm going to preface this with, so there was a venue called the Melvin Theater. I love the people that ran that place. It was Lauren Can, what was his name, Keefe?
Yeah.
They were great. I loved those people. But their air conditioning went out at this place. And it's in an old brick building. So when you walked in, it was like being in a brick oven. It was like probably 100+ degrees.
Yeah, it was the middle of the summer,
Yeah, it was. It was like
That's terrible.
June, July. And, but I mean, we wanted to play. And a bunch of stuff had just gotten stolen from them. Like, so it was just like, I felt so bad for them. They're the nicest people. They had us back a bunch of times. And we brought our own system. Will's dad, Bill, brought a system, and we would go with him and set it up. And we were there at, like, what time in the morning? It was pretty early.
9 or 10, probably.
To set it all up and really get it sounding good. So when everybody started sound checking, it was ready to go. And so we were there from 10 till, we didn't play till sometimes till, like, probably 11 o'clock almost. We were there all day just baking. And I think we were so tired from the heat that we didn't play horribly, but we didn't play like to our fullest potential.
Right. That was the day that Kevin actually came and did some guest vocals with us. He did like some screaming parts.
Yeah, that was one of the times that we went there. That was so fun. We played Monster.
Yeah.
Way out of our genre, but it was fun, dude. It was great.
I've seen videos of that performance, and my voice especially was just not having it that day.
It was hot.
That was a really rough day.
You were sweating from 10 in the morning until you went to bed.
Yeah.
Oh, that's rough.
We were like, do you have water? Yeah, but we don't have a fridge, so you're just drinking hot water all day. It doesn't really help.
But for me, that was a time in my life where I didn't really drink water. I just drank Mountain Dew like it was water.
Yeah, classic.
Just
classic
dumb.
Will. I was like, Will, aren't you going to drink water? I mean, you got to sing, there's water in this.
That's what I would say. It's funny.
There's more sodium and sugar than there is water.
To be young and dumb.
They were fun, though.
They were a lot of fun.
Well, I mean,
it was just not a good performance.
When we played there, we did some nights.
We did do some nights, didn't we?
That was awesome.
Loved playing
that was really fun.
Yeah.
So what do you do in your free time besides music?
You don't really have a lot of free time.
I don't really have any free time. I guess what I would do in my free time is I would play a lot of video games with Alyssa, and we would do puzzles and go on long walks on the beach and that kind of stuff, you know.
Which beach? Is there a beach nearby that I don't know about?
Nope. That'd be if we actually managed to move to Portland someday, which would be sweet.
It's problematic right now.
Yeah, yeah. Pretty much, I mean, at the moment, like trying to make a career out of music is the kind of thing you got to wake up and eat, breathe, and then sleep music again.
Yeah, of course.
So at the moment, at this time in my life, if it's not kind of career music oriented, it doesn't really happen probably. Like I don't really watch Netflix anymore like I used to. If I had free time, I'd play a lot more video games than I do. I'm a big Zelda, Pokemon nerd, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Yep, not ashamed.
I
about you,
spend
Greg?
my free time playing music.
You do? That's
just what I do. I mean, as sad as it sounds, there's a select few things that I like to do, and music is probably that's what I do in my free time, really. I mean, I've started reading a lot more.
Yeah.
Cool.
Like
What do you read?
before bed or something.
What are you reading right now?
Right now, what am I reading?
recently?
Well, oh man, I recently read The Hobbit because I haven't read
great
that
book.
since I was a kid, and I appreciate it more now than I did when I was a
Yeah.
kid. There's a book by Dietrich Bonhoeffer that I have on the way. It's called Ethics. Some of my favorite people are people that can think way outside the box. Like when they'll drive past something that is like a desert or something. They're like, how often does my soul look like this desert? And I'm like, this is really intriguing, and it makes me want to read on. And they think of things so differently. It's like they're such open-minded people. So
Philosophical.
I try to read. Yeah, I try to read things like that to make me think. Instead
open
of
your
just
mind
being
a little
set
bit,
in my
sure.
ways, it just opened me up a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I've been kind of doing a lot more reading too. I guess I wouldn't necessarily think of it as free time. Like I kind of schedule
It is, though.
that.
You could be doing something
yeah,
else, then.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it is. I just finished up not too long ago. I think Dale Carnegie wrote it.
Yeah, I think, didn't you just quote
How to Win
him?
Friends and Influence People.
Yeah, that's-
such a good book,
Yep.
man. It's just,
I haven't read it, but it's
I
it's on my
forgot.
list.
I'm reading another book. I'm sorry.
what book are you reading?
Continue. There's a book my dad gave me called Who Moved My Cheese.
That's a good one. It's on my list.
That book was one of the biggest reasons my dad started his own business.
Mm-hmm.
And so it coming from him as a gift like that because it
Yeah.
meant so much to him was so neat.
Yeah.
So I'm reading that as well.
Cool.
Sorry
I haven't
that
heard
I
that
cut
one.
you off, but
No, you're
I was
good.
excited. I'm
That's
excited
cool.
about that.
Yeah, that's one I've heard of too, for sure. Then I'm going to get that one read. I highly recommend The Compound Effect. I
Yeah.
finished that one not too long ago. Cool.
There's a book you probably would like, Minimalism.
It's
A
been
Guide
recommended to me.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
Yeah.
their documentary on Netflix is incredible.
Yeah.
I would probably
But their
like
book,
that.
Minimalism: A Guide to Living a More Meaningful Life, is a really good book. too.
Yeah. I think it's. So you said it's on Netflix, right?
Yeah.
I actually got to have lunch with a guy named Brian Hood out in Nashville, and he recommended that I check out that documentary. He's a studio owner out there, and he runs a bunch of different like educational audio groups and stuff. And I just sent him a message one day. I was like, "Hey man, I'm gonna be in Nashville. You can I buy you lunch?" And he was like, "Yeah man, sure, sounds good." And so like I just got to sit down with this immensely successful studio owner and buy him lunch and just talk to him about like his success and how he got there and all this
Wow, that's
stuff. And
incredible.
so that was one that he recommended to me as a minimalism documentary. So
Oh, yeah, it's
I'll
great.
definitely have to check that out.
There's one that I really want to read called Never Say No. It was written by the parents of John and Tim
Mark
Foreman.
Foreman. Yeah.
Mark Foreman
Yeah.
and his wife. But it's about how they raise their kids, and it's really interesting because they got them thinking about things at a really early age. Like when they would listen to a song, they were like, well, let's talk about the lyrics. They're really interesting. Like the way they think is fascinating.
Yeah.
And it's just, being 26, I know I probably have kids coming up sometime soon. So I was like, I better prepare myself.
Figure out how to be a parent.
Sure.
Yeah.
And I like the books that I've been reading, I feel like such a different person after I read them, that there's something that's becoming innately ingrained in me. Like I need to keep doing this,
Yeah.
there's something almost spiritual about like looking at somebody's entire life experiences put into 200-300 pages of a book, and he's, giving you the experience that he spent a lifetime to acquire, and you're reading it in the span of 300 pages. You know,
I mean,
that's fascinating to me.
It's just like writing a song, really.
Yeah.
But it's just more drawn out.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of starving artists, I think the current statistic is 10% of the U.S. is going to read one book this year,
Nice.
and the other 90% are not going to pick up a book. So
All right.
it's tough to be an author.
Yeah, I believe it.
My girlfriend's
Yeah.
a librarian, so it's just not an option for me. I have to read it.
Yeah.
I know I like it though. She, and she's really supportive of it, which is a good thing.
You're right.
How do you promote yourself?
I'm trying to be better. I'm trying to
I don't think I'm
do
very
more
good at
stuff
it.
with Facebook. You're probably not very good at it yet.
That's okay though.
Yeah.
I'm trying to get my feet on the ground still though.
Yeah, like for me, like for the studio stuff, and even for like my original music, like I'm just trying to have more of a social media presence. You know, like I see all these guys that like I follow and look up to, and they're just all talking about how you got to have a brand and you know, how to market yourself on social media and put out quality content. You know, like we were talking about earlier, stuff that's valuable and that adds value to people's lives. So I've been actively working on having a better social media presence.
Yeah.
And you know, just the people that I interact with on a daily basis, be that in person or through the internet, adding value to their lives somehow, so that they, you know, they think of me when they need a service of mine, whether that be
Sure.
a studio musician or like a live performance or something like that. But just,
I tell people about you.
oh, thanks, man. Appreciate that.
Now, what is the best piece of advice you've ever been given?
There's just
That's so good.
There's a lot
That's
of
so
advice.
much. Yeah, especially in music.
Like,
man.
I can't give credit to myself for anything that I've done or that I'm, you know, skilled in. Like, it all came from somewhere. It all came from some kind of advice.
School of Rock, stick it to the man.
That's great advice for an artist, you know?
I'm just kidding.
That's like, I mean, Ryan Torpia, he's smashing the patriarchy every single day of his life.
Smashing
Uh,
the pitcher.
Yeah.
yeah.
That's
Is that his advice?
Gosh,
yeah,
I love
that's
Ryan
the advice
so
I got
much.
from him, you know, and then
Ryan Torpia, we love you, dude.
it just,
Hopefully
you know, I
you're
mean,
listening.
all of these books that we're talking about, you know, like these,
Oh, there's
these
so
things
much
are,
good advice,
you know,
yeah.
changing my life. And, we've been blessed to be able to hang out with the guys in Switchfoot a handful of times, and every single time there is some kind of nugget of information that they're just putting into our brand. Like, that comes to me daily from somebody giving me some kind of advice. There's no way that I would be able to just pick like a piece of advice as most contributing to me. Although I'll say Graham Cochran, who's a recording guy
Oh, yeah.
that you know
Yep.
of, is a video just talking about the best piece of advice he'd ever been given or that he could offer to a studio guy, and that was to simply do more work, like better than, you know, watching tons of videos or reading
Yeah,
any
sure.
book. Just do it more often. And it kind of inspired me to actually, one, get to work doing more recordings and stuff for my studio, but, you know, just to start writing again and to start playing my instruments more often. You know, I have all these instruments sitting in my room, and I take for granted that they're all there. Like, I should be
It's
playing
full.
something every single day, you know, like there's,
man.
I should just be doing stuff more, because that's how opportunity comes. That's how relationships are built, is just by taking action and doing things. You know, if you can have all the gear in the world, you can have all the talent in the world, but if you're not doing anything, then nothing's going to happen with your life.
Yeah. I mean, that carries on through anything through life.
Right.
You can contemplate all you want, but you got to take action. That's the
Right.
only
Yeah.
thing that matters.
One of my favorite, I don't know if it's necessarily a piece of advice, but I was watching Olin Rogers. He's
Yeah.
kind of like a YouTube phenomenon.
He's fantastic.
He's super funny. I would love to meet him. He seems like he's just the sweetest guy, and he's so full of life. And in one of his videos, he was talking about if you're going through life and there's something that you love and you're not doing it, are you truly living? He says it much more profoundly than that, but it's like that woke me up to so much. That, and I think one of my favorite things I've ever heard, just because it's a good constant reminder, is life is short, live it well. I mean, I'm only 26, but 26 years has gone by quick. The
Right.
next 26 years is going to go by just as
Oh, yeah,
fast.
for sure.
So, actually live.
If you had a soundtrack to your life, what would it be?
I mean, it would change every day.
Yeah, though.
Yeah, like depending on my mood and such. I mean, like I said, my iTunes library currently is around 5,000 songs, which doesn't seem like all that much. Like
I want to get back to that.
and I love all of the music that I own. It just in some manner it has some kind of resonance with me. And so just whatever mood I'm in, that's what I'm playing that day. There's so much.
If I had to pick one to listen to every day, and it was the first record I ever bought with my own money. I don't know if you know that. It'd be Vice Versa's. That record is so good.
Switchfoot, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah, it's a really good album.
I see a theme here.
Well, it was the first record I ever bought with my own money, which is funny because it took me a long time, but I feel like that album captures life really well, like kind of what it is and what you go through.
Yeah.
Another one that I would love is EP Stealing Silver was going to put out.
Yeah.
That captured what life is super well. It started with a song called Sunshine. That was kind of like proclaiming that you want to be in the light, right, and be alive, correct?
Yeah.
Kind of all those things. The middle of the record was kind of all the different things you go through, like the good, bad, and the ugly that you go through in life. And then it ended with a song called Daylight and just brings you right back home. And I love that it was sunshine and daylight. Please put those songs out.
I'll do it.
So good. So good.
Thanks, man.
What new projects are you working on currently or are coming up?
Well, I've been writing some songs with my buddy Jake. There's no like names for anything, but I've been trying to do something different, if at all possible, because, you know, I tend to get in like almost like ruts with my writing where you'll do the same thing over and over. So I'm just trying to change some things, but I think we're working on like 5 different new songs right now. I'm trying to get Will to write some stuff because I really want to record music with Will really bad. I was just texting him about that the other day.
I've got an original EP that I'm almost done with, songs that I wrote, and then I did all the tracking for, and so I'm currently almost done mixing and mastering everything, and then I really want to get like physical copies of it before I actually release it, just because that's the kind of guy I am. But that, I have no idea when exactly I'll be done with it or when I'll be able to afford actually getting physical copies.
Sure.
Maybe I'll put it online before I actually can afford the physical copies, because getting it online didn't cost anything. But then, yeah, Bullseye Womprats is a heck of a lot of fun. It's like a cover group that we both play in, and it's
Mashups.
Top 40s of all decades, and we have a female lead vocalist, Christina, so we kind of get to do stuff that you don't often hear cover bands do.
Sure.
Stuff that I've never played before.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, we have so much fun with it. Like, I recently, the past 2 or 3 gigs that we've done, I haven't gone home without like hurting myself in some manner from jumping around and having too much fun. Like, and I'll wake up the next day and I can barely walk around work and stuff. That's
great.
We have a ton of fun with it. And I'm playing bass in this gospel group, Stuart Stiles and Divinity too, and that's a lot of fun. Those guys are absolutely insane musicians. They push me a lot, so that's been a lot of fun. I feel like I'm twice the musician I was before I started with that group because of those guys. And yeah, like this is studio stuff, trying to kind of make that a living. That's, you know, kind of everything I'm doing. I got to record Greg's band Eastview. That was a really cool project to be working on, because those guys write some pretty cool music.
that's okay.
I like it. I'll listen to it in my
Thanks.
car. Yeah.
Well, great. Thank you, guys.
Absolutely,
Yeah,
man.
such
Thanks
a
for
great
having me.
episode.
Thanks for
It was a lot of fun, man.
This was really an incredible episode. I hope you got as much out of listening as I did speaking with them. Every time I talk to either of these guys, I always learn something new about them as individuals, about their craft, or about the music industry in general. You can follow Will on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Will Gerdell, and SoundCloud at Will-Gerdell. Greg is on Facebook as Greg Primo, and Instagram and Twitter at The Skipper Greg. The links for these, as well as for Eastview and Bullseye Womprats, are in the show notes. You can purchase or stream Eastview's new song, Emergency, at any online store. If you enjoyed this episode, I encourage you to tweet at me your #1 takeaway at Watson_sound. You can follow me on Facebook and Instagram at Watson Sound Studio. If you are a recording artist and would like a quote for your next project, you can send me a message at watsonsoundstudio.com/requestquote. I offer affordable rates and will give you a free quote for mixing, mastering, and session musician tracking services. I also offer services in podcast production, including mobile recording, editing, and mixing. Be sure to stay up to date with the podcast by subscribing on iTunes, SoundCloud, and YouTube, or by visiting watsonsoundstudio.com/podcast. Thank you for listening, and be sure to tune in to the next episode with Mitch Etter and Brielle Rutledge of High Crime.